Hello, Gravitrons. I'm more gravity. Let's play chess. So, a little dejected by the penalty shootout loss of the Manshaft. I was hoping that they would win. They are my second team after, of course, the United States men's national team. And I would also say the United States women's national team. However, the women are not eligible for this tournament, the FIFA World Cup of soccer. Anyway, my Germans were defeated on penalty kicks just when we seemed like we had pulled even and might uh, pull through. We actually ended up losing on penalties. So that's how that is. But this game I played here is sort of a consolation game or a game to divert my attention. Did not go so poorly. In fact, this game instead went well. So let's take a look. Uh, 82 and 74% accuracy is okay. It's sort of on the lower third of what I would accept to review in normal circumstances. See, there's a blunder, a lot of mistakes, and then better. So let's take a look at what happened, and I'll offer my thoughts and analysis on just about every move. All right, this is a well known book position with black to move here. White takes control of the center very directly, in a very classical way, and enjoys a very classical center. Black, on the other hand, has the fiend shadowed bishop and will castle kingside soon, and has the comfort of a safe king and the the hyper modern idea of attacking the center from the sides. D6 stays within this and is an attempt to stem early e5s by white. If the pawn on d6, e5 is not such a great move. We have bishop to e2 and castles kingside. Very hyper modern, very classical or romantic. So, should be fun. The ideas meet. I played h4. Does that get us back into book? No, I guess we were still in book. So I played h4 and then pushed h5. I want black to have to do something about this, or it turns out black lets me. Uh, area, what is this? Arealito. O is a masculine ending. So Arealito in a Spanish speaking country, I say, is a male. So I forced my opponent to move his bishop here. Anything other than that, anything other than that will cause a loss of material to black that isn't, well, that's not acceptable. So instead, my opponent played bishop to h8, and with pawn to d5, knight to d4, we've reached this position with white to move. It's about equal. I mean, the knight can take off my bishop from e2. This situation near black's king is good for white. It's not serious yet. It's not really a serious or immediate concern. Black will look to prevent like a white queen from getting to g7 with this bishop gone somewhere. Okay, but overall, board's about equal here. I chose to pin my opponent's knight to his queen, and with c6, my opponent more or less announces intentions to open the center from the c file, maybe taking advantage of a king that hasn't uh, castled yet, as late as we are after the end of move 10. I'm not sold on the idea because, like I indicate here, c takes d5, or after c takes d5, c takes d5. I'm not sold on the attack yet by black. The pawn on e5 helps break up any would-be attack. Knight to e4, and then who cares if a piece is sacked? You have these two knights in there. This bishop is now streaming down into the board. The queen's got the bishops back in a moment's notice. But this pawn at e5 is a serious stumbling block, or block, even just block, to black's aggressive intent to black's aggressive intentions. f4, queen to a4, f takes e5, d takes e5, bishop to f3. Bishop to f3 is kind of funky. This is a move I wouldn't have made 6 years ago. 6 years ago, I played knight f3. Just let's see what happens. But bishop to e3, or sorry, bishop from e2 to bishop from e2 to f3. Is good. We're trying to get rid of the light squared bishop. So knight takes f3, knight takes f3, or knight takes f3, queen takes f3 will be good for white. Well, my opponent didn't fall for it. Instead, continuing with his plan from earlier, c takes d5, right? Opening up the c file and some stuff, loosening up other parts of the center. Maybe not right away because we'll be all four square here, but and try to get at white's king from the queen side. Yeah. Black's attacks in this position depend on coming from the queen side at white's king. Knight at g to e2. Look, again, offering more choices for trades. There, in some eventuality, knight takes d4, e takes d4, queen takes d4, and if I guess the knight might go to g4 or elsewhere. It's not exactly clear, and unveil a discovered attack against white's queen on d4. So that might actually work out a little bit for the better for black. It looks like white can just sidestep this. Maybe queen c4. Queen a4's out, right? Because we note that the bishop's covering that square. Knight takes f3, g takes f3, rook c8, queen b3, b6. I'm not all too concerned about. The computer marks these as inaccuracies. Take, for instance, b6. Maybe there's a more active move or a better way to defend or something. Move the queen here and then trade or something. I'm not all that worried about that. b6 is smart because it just prevents, long-term speaking, queen b7 and then invading on the 7th rank. some sort of barrage of minor pieces plus pawn plus queens plus minor pieces plus pawn plus queen. I determined that a trade of queens here is actually not too bad for white. My opponent's got a slight advantage, a little advantage, a little bit of an advantage. Nothing to go crazy about. Rook to e8. Is bad, but not right away. It's not all that bad a move right away. Down the line, maybe, but not to where I calculated. There's a king to f2 as an inaccuracy. Why? How is that an inaccuracy? Then my opponent plays a strong move, knight to h5. And I contemplated sacking the exchange right away. I thought maybe rook to g1 could do better of that, and I see that maybe I've missed something. Let's take a look here. I tried rook a to g1, and the computer shows knight to f4 to give black some advantage. And that's what was played, so we'll go ahead with it. I said, all right, well, I'll threaten now to capture and then the pawn in addition. And it looks like this move was also in error in some small way for an inaccuracy. And knight to h3 is indicated. That's what was played. So, yeah, take off that knight. We now have sacked that exchange we were looking to sack. And pawn to d6. The bishop moved back to d7, I agree, is a bit of a folly here. Black does not have that kind of time, frankly, in this position. There are more important things than bishop to d7. Sorry, d7. More important things than bishop to d7. For instance, how about get the heck rid of my bishop from cutting right into black's camp from the king's side towards the center. We can do that with pawn to f6. I think shows a better sense of urgency than playing a move like bishop to d7. I'm critical of this move. No, my opponent played a great game. It was an interesting game, a fun game, and I think this was one of those moves that it doesn't like throw material away or anything like that. It's just not a very productive move. Think of what white threatens. This bishop on g5 is a monster in this position. So that's it. And on the other hand, look, the bishop gets out of the way of certain threats, like rook to g3, and out of the way of those threats, and out of the way of those threats, and out of the way of those threats early. So it's not all that bad. It's just meiner Meinung nach, as the Germans say. In my opinion, bishop to d7 on move 24 by black was not a great use of initiative. f6, right, and then I'm gonna get a pawn and a bishop for a bishop, and I'm gonna get a pawn and both bishops for a bishop, or just about. Right? Yeah, you end up taking the rook here. This was the computer has this as a good move. Okay, well, good for the computer, but anybody else reviewing this game would probably note this as a brilliant move. Knight takes e8, and regardless of who recaptures, all white has to do is push f4 then, however the pawn gets off the board, the knight's in place, and pawn to e5, and then protect the base of that pawn, the one on e5 that's also helping with d6, and this promotion threat can't be stopped. It's not really brilliant, but it's a good simplification. You could capture this bishop on d7. I wouldn't. Black will have these rooks stacked in no time. And the d pawn's a goner in that circumstance, right? You can't. This knight is needed in many circumstances, most circumstances, to help f4. Well, I guess we got the e knight for that. The knight at e2. Lost track of the knights there, but look. Knight takes e8 all the way. Rook takes e8 is the best move. I agree with the computer here. I'll swing my knight. I'm going to swing my rook over. I've been doing that. I'm going to swing my rook over to c1. And here, this is it. I mean, white's doing well, and after the trade of rooks, this is just a one game where we're going to put a protector behind white's d6 pawn, and then make sure we get to protect that at just about the nick of time. Again, this inaccuracy indication, you can just pretty much ignore that, because this knight is protecting the pawn on e5, who's protecting the most important. The king is technically always the most important piece on the board. So these two kings, okay, fine, whatever. But this pawn, in a dynamic way, is important because he might not necessarily make it to promotion safely, and then find out that he's a queen and not a he. Anyway, but she might not necessarily make it to the d8 square to promote the queen successfully. But yeah, some bad moves, some lousy moves by black. Were they? No, I wouldn't say so. No. King g6 is smart. Well, you would want to push the pawn, but it's a little bit early for that, because then I just move and I can get a second attacker on it soon. Anyway, my opponent played king to g6. King e4 gobbles the pawn. And this is exciting to play. In retrospect or in review, we say, what, the computer had done 10. The evaluation bar says 8.4 right here, or some amount, 8.6. I didn't know that. I don't have these green markings saying it was a good move or a blunder. If it's a red marking, a blue marking. If it's a really particularly great move. I'm not looking at this evaluation bar telling me you're ahead by 2 pi rooks or something. No. When I'm playing this game, like, I don't want to mess this up. But with some accurate moves, white will find the win here. Pawn to e6, and the king comes close, and it's all of a sudden scary, because black has 2 pieces on a pawn that is only protected once, and other protected moves lose that protecting piece and go back to the original problem. So, did he find it? d7 for the win. And bishop takes d7. E takes d7. And white will still find a way for the win. Knight f7 check. It's hard to consider that a miss, really. It's going to lead directly to the promotion of a queen by force. So a promotion of a pawn to queen by force. So yeah, not sure why that would be a miss. But here comes white, and finally black resigns. Game's over. Like I said, my opponent played a strong game, a good game, a spirited game, and the end game kind of went my way. I was critical of that one bishop to d7 move, but overall it's a spirited game, so not to take that too harshly. Okay. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you, Gravitrons. I'm more gravity. Have a great night.